The following Appalachian Mountains horror story is real, disturbing, and should be used as a warning. The names and locations have been altered to protect the individuals involved. Viewer discretion is advised. This story has exactly one ending, and it isn't a good one. A woman is missing. A man with no real name walked back into 23,700 acres of wilderness and vanished. And a white poodle named Biscuit is the only witness who can't tell you what she saw. This happened 5 months ago. Daniel has told this story exactly twice. Once to a detective in a beige room in Gorham, New Hampshire, and once to his mother, who started crying before he got to the second scene. He hasn't told it since, not because he doesn't think about it. He thinks about it every day. He hasn't told it because every time he tries, people ask him how the story ends, and he has to tell them it doesn't. So here's what you need to know about Daniel first. He's 23 years old and he color codes his gear bags. Blue stuff sack for food, red for first aid, yellow for emergency shelter. He has done this since he was 14, the summer his scoutmaster dumped every kid's pack on the trail and made them reorganize everything from scratch. Daniel finished first. He has been finishing first ever since, at least when it comes to packing a bag. Life outside of a bag is a little more complicated. He graduated 6 months ago from UNH with a degree in environmental science and has not found a job, which is why he has 4 free days in October and no reasonable argument for being anywhere other than the White Mountains of New Hampshire. In his left hip belt pocket, folded and laminated, is a copy of the AMC's New Hampshire 48 4,000-footers checklist. 11 peaks are circled, 37 are not. He checks it most mornings without meaning to, the way people check their phones. His hiking partner is Margaret. She's 22 and reads topographic maps the way other people read novels. Pencil annotations in the margins, little notes about where the mud gets bad, where she spotted a moose back in 2022, where the water tastes like iron. She and Daniel met freshman year, when a tent pole snapped on a club trip up Franconia Ridge, and she fixed it with a hiking pole section and a strip of webbing while he held a flashlight and tried to look useful. She is the better hiker by a margin neither of them discusses out loud. She's also been trying to process her parents' divorce for 3 months. The mountains are the only place the noise in her head goes quiet. The last text she sent before losing cell signal read, "White Mountains back Sunday." Her roommate left it on red. Now, before we go any further, you need to understand something about where these two are. The White Mountain National Forest covers 800,000 acres. That's bigger than Yosemite. The Appalachian Trail runs right through it, and this particular stretch, the Wild River Wilderness, offers more miles above tree line than anywhere else on the entire 2,190-mile corridor. Mount Washington sits to the east, and locals describe it as the most dangerous small mountain in the world. The weather up there doesn't change gradually. It ambushes you. And the forest on the lower elevations, the dense birch and spruce packed tight below tree line, swallows sound completely. It doesn't feel indifferent in there. It feels like something paying attention. This is day 2 of a 4-day section hike. Daniel and Margaret push deep into the Wild River backcountry. No trailblazes, no maintained signage, no cell service. The last hikers they saw were a southbound couple the previous afternoon who said almost nothing and kept moving. Since then, it has just been the two of them and the trees and the sound of water somewhere below the ridge. Then a fast-moving weather system rolls off Mount Washington. The clouds drop hard and fast. The granite goes dark and wet. Visibility on the ridge cuts to 60 feet. So they divert. They drop off the main AT corridor and descend onto a lower side trail near the Ethan Pond Junction, a route that puts them roughly 2.4 miles from the nearest Forest Service road. Below tree line now. The trees close in behind them like a door swinging shut. There is no one who knows exactly where they are. It is a completely ordinary Tuesday in October. And that's when it happens. 30 feet ahead, a white standard poodle steps out of the tree line. It's wearing a red service dog vest, the kind with the chest patch and the front pouch. It stops dead center on the trail. And then it looks directly at Daniel. Not at Margaret. At Daniel specifically. With the calm, level attention of something that has already made a decision. Then it turns and walks slowly back into the trees. It stops once and looks over its shoulder. Not twice, once. It is not scared. It is not circling. It is not sniffing the ground the way a lost dog does when it's trying to find its person. It is waiting to see if he will follow. They don't even debate it. The dog has a vest. Someone out here needs help. That's the whole calculation, and it takes about 4 seconds. Daniel's pack is already moving, and Margaret is right behind him. The dog leads them off trail and down into a creek drainage, threading northeast through birch and spruce that close in tighter with every 50 feet. Daniel watches it move, and something about the way it moves starts to bother him in a place he can't quite name yet. He's not a dog person, doesn't know the technical stuff, but even he knows that a lost animal acts lost, circles, whimpers, noses the ground. This dog does none of that. It moves in a straight line at a steady, unhurried pace, not fast, not slow. The way a person walks when they know exactly where they're going, and they're just waiting for everyone else to keep up. Every 40 or 50 feet it stops, turns, and checks on them. Not with panic, with something that feels more like assessment, making sure they're still following. Then it turns back around and keeps going. It is using the terrain deliberately, picking the drainage corridor, choosing gaps in the undergrowth with a precision that doesn't make sense for an animal that's supposed to be separated and scared. Margaret is walking just ahead of him. She's been watching the dog too. She says it quietly, barely above the sound of the creek. That's not how lost looks. Daniel doesn't answer. He will think about that sentence for the rest of the day. They follow for maybe 15 minutes. The canopy thickens and the light drops a full register. That gray-green October dimness that makes everything look slightly underwater. Daniel's boots are loud on the wet granite. The dog's paws make almost no sound at all. Then the dog stops at a flat granite slab beside a small stream crossing. It just pauses, tail moving slowly, ears soft, like it knows they need a moment. Margaret kneels down slowly, and the dog lets her get close. She unzips the small front pouch on the vest, and Daniel watches her face as she reads what's inside. Her expression doesn't change right away. That's what gets him. She reads it once, then reads it again, and then she holds the pill bottle up so he can see the label. Maddie Smith, Lamotrigine 100 milligrams, take as directed. CVS Pharmacy, Littleton, New Hampshire. Daniel turns it over in his hands. He doesn't know what Lamotrigine is, not exactly. But he pulls out his phone out of habit, gets no signal, and looks at Margaret. "What is this?" he says. "Seizure medication." She says it flat and even. Maybe other things too, but that's the main one. She pauses. "You don't leave it behind." That lands in Daniel's chest like a stone dropping into still water. You don't leave it behind. He checks the collar. No ID tag, no contact card, No secondary name on any buckle or D-ring anywhere on the vest. He goes through the pouch a second time himself. Emergency contact card, blank on the back, a collapsed water bowl, the pill bottle. The only name on this animal anywhere is Matty Smith, and Matty Smith is not here. He can feel his brain reaching for the reasonable explanation, the same way it always does, grabbing for the nearest thing that makes sense. Matty is a trail partner who went ahead. The dog is registered under her name medically, but belongs to someone else. There's a logical reason for all of this. There has to be, because the other version, the version where that pill bottle means what it looks like it means, is not something Daniel is ready to carry yet. Therefore, they keep following. The drainage narrows between two wet ridgeline walls and the spruce crowds in overhead, branches locking together like fingers interlacing. Their footsteps echo off the rock. Then the smell arrives. Wood smoke. Steady and deliberate, threading up through the drainage from somewhere below. The dog is already moving. It doesn't wait for conclusions. Where is Matty Smith? The drainage opens into a small clearing at a bend in the creek. Daniel stops at the tree line and takes it in before the man can see him doing it. A campsite. Neat, practiced, the kind of setup that didn't happen by accident. An MSR tent staked with precise, even spacing. Not the irregular pattern of someone who threw it up before dark. A fire ring with coals still faintly orange at the center, the flames built wide and low, throwing light in every direction. A camp chair facing the water, a man in it, mid-40s, jacket unzipped, eating from a titanium camp pot. He doesn't look up. He heard them coming. Daniel is certain of that. And he chose not to react. That deliberate non-reaction lands somewhere at the base of Daniel's throat, like a finger pressing down. The dog trots into the clearing and stops. Not beside the man. Not to him. It stops 6 feet away in the space exactly between the man and the two hikers, and turns to face the man. Daniel puts one hand on Margaret's forearm. 2 fingers pressed once. Their trail shorthand for weight. He leans close enough that his voice disappears under the sound of the creek. Follow my lead. Don't say a name, don't confirm anything. Margaret's jaw tightens. She got it. Here's what Daniel decides to do in the next 4 seconds, and it's honestly one of the sharper things he has ever done. He is not going to give this man anything real. No names, no confirmation of how long they've been out here or where they came from. And most importantly, he is going to give the man a fake name and see what happens. Not accuse him of anything. Not spook him. Just drop a name into the air that has never existed anywhere outside of Daniel's head, and watch. He steps into the clearing. Tired hiker voice. Easy and open. The voice of a guy who has been out here 2 days and finds everything mildly interesting. Hey, sorry to bother you. Is this your dog? We've been following it for about 20 minutes. Wanted to make sure it got back to someone okay. The man sets the camp pot down on the arm of the chair. He looks at the poodle. A pause that runs 1 full second too long. Not the pause of someone recognizing their own animal, but the pause of someone building a memory rather than retrieving one. Daniel's pulse ticks up 1 notch. Then the man looks back at them, and his face arranges itself into something relaxed and neighborly. Yeah, that's mine. A short nod. I'm Casey Johnson. Full name. Both names. Completely unprompted. Daniel's stomach drops straight through the floor of the forest. Nobody on a backcountry trail introduces themselves to a stranger with their last name. Nobody does that. You say, "Hey, I'm Mike," and you move on. You give a last name when you're presenting credentials, or when you're filling in a blank you think needs to be filled. This man just reached into the air, grabbed a name that Daniel invented 11 seconds ago inside his own head, and claimed it as his own without a single flicker of hesitation. Casey Johnson does not exist. He has never existed. And the only real name on anything in this clearing, on the collar, in the vest pouch, on the prescription label currently sitting in Margaret's jacket pocket, is Maddie Smith. Then the dog growls, low, sustained, not at Daniel, not at Margaret, at him. The poodle's head drops a half-inch, that slow, deliberate postural drop that means a decision has been made. It doesn't bark, doesn't lunge. It simply informs the clearing of something it has apparently known for a while. The man's eyes move, not to the dog, not to Daniel, to the tree line behind them, as if checking whether anyone else is coming down that drainage. Daniel's hands go cold to the wrist, because the man isn't wondering if the dog will bite him. He's doing an inventory. He wants to know how contained this is. Then the man looks back. The neighborly expression clicks back into place like a light switch. "You two come in from the Crawford Notch side?" Daniel smiles. "Yeah, Crawford Notch." Margaret smiles. Long day. They are both smiling at a man who just claimed a name that doesn't exist, whose dog is growling at him from 6 feet away, who just checked the tree line behind two strangers before he looked at their faces. And he is standing directly between them and the only trail out. They cannot run. Not yet. The man is between them and the one trail out, and if they bolt right now, if their body language shifts 1 degree in the wrong direction, he knows they know. And there is no one within 2 miles who could hear anything over the sound of that creek. So they perform. Daniel sits down on a log at the edge of the fire ring like a man with nowhere to be. Margaret sits beside him. Their packs stay on. Daniel makes sure of that, keeps the shoulder straps snugged, because a pack on your back is 30 seconds faster than a pack on the ground when you need to move. The man doesn't seem to notice. Or he notices and doesn't say anything, which is its own kind of information. The fire crackles. The coals pulse orange. The dog sits in the space between them and the man and does not move from it. When the man offers to top off their water bottles from his gravity filter hanging in a nearby spruce, Daniel says yes immediately, because saying no to a kind offer is a tell. Saying yes buys time and keeps the temperature in the clearing exactly where he needs it. Lukewarm, neighborly, boring. He watches the water drip through the filter into his bottle and keeps his face completely still. They talk about the trail the way hikers talk about the trail. The mud near the Ethan Pond shelter. The weather rolling off Washington. Whether the AMC huts are worth the cost per night. Normal. Meandering. The conversation of people who have nothing on their minds but mileage. Daniel asks how long the man has been out here. 3 days, the man says. 3 days. Daniel files that away without moving his face. 3 days means this man was already here. Already camped. Already established in this unmarked clearing 2.5 miles from the nearest trail. Before Maddie Smith was wherever Maddie Smith now is. He doesn't know exactly what that means yet. He knows it means something. Then the man starts asking questions of his own, and they have a shape to them that Daniel doesn't like. Not where are you headed? That's a trail question. Not where did you start? Also a trail question. Hikers ask trail questions because hikers are thinking about the trail. These questions are thinking about something else entirely. How many other hikers did you pass on the way in? Was anyone camped at the Ethan Pond shelter when you came through? Did you have cell service anywhere on the approach? Each one lands in Daniel's chest like a small cold weight. The man is doing an inventory. He wants to know how many people have a rough idea of where Daniel and Margaret are right now. He wants to know how many people would notice and when, if 2 hikers who came down this drainage didn't come back out of it. He wants to know how contained this is. Margaret's thumbnail finds the inside of Daniel's wrist, hidden between their legs on the log. She presses, hard, then harder, a slow and deliberate signal that she has arrived at the same place he has. Daniel does not look at her. He answers each question with the relaxed vagueness of someone whose brain is full of nothing but tired legs and tomorrow's mileage. A few people, maybe 2 or 3, didn't really check the shelter. No signal since the trailhead. All of it kept just imprecise enough to be useless. Then the man stands to get something from the tent. He is partially turned away for 4 seconds. Maybe 5. Daniel catalogs. The tent zipper has a small combination lock threaded through the pull tab. His eyes go to it and stay there for exactly 1 second before he pulls them away. You don't lock a tent in the backcountry. There is nothing in a backcountry tent worth stealing. No thief is hiking 2.4 miles through unmarked drainage to take a sleeping bag. There is no reason to lock a tent out here except to keep something inside that you don't want someone to find on their own. The fire is too big for one person's warmth. He clocked that when they first stepped into the clearing, but his brain filed it as a quirk. Now it doesn't feel like a quirk. It's built for 360 degrees of light, visibility in every direction, nothing approaching the clearing from any angle without being seen first. And when the man turns back, and his jacket shifts with the movement, the handle of a fixed-blade knife catches the firelight on his right hip. Legal on a trail, common as a water filter. Daniel's hands go cold to the wrist and stay there. 3 things, all of them worse than the last. He does not change his expression. Daniel stretches, rolls his neck, checks his watch with the unhurried energy of a man who has a full afternoon ahead of him and a mild preference about how to spend it. We should push on. Easy, conversational, the complete sentence of someone who is not afraid. Trying to make the Ethan Pond shelter before dark. Direction, destination, reason, nothing that invites a follow-up. The man's eyes go to the dog. The dog takes 1 step toward Daniel, 1 slow, deliberate step. Not scared, not playful, a choice. The man says, "You're not going to take my dog." Present tense flat. He says it before anyone mentioned the dog at all. Margaret moves. 3 fast steps north, pack already bouncing on her back, and her hand closes around Daniel's shoulder strap and pulls. His legs make the decision, and his brain approves it half a second later, and then they are in the drainage and moving. The trail is wet rock and exposed roots, and the October light is failing fast through the canopy. At the 200-meter mark, Daniel's left knee clips a root at full stride, and the ground comes up hard, gravel into the meat of his palm, white bright pain that shoots to the elbow. But Margaret already has his collar, and the momentum is there, and they are moving again. Short thoughts now. Left, step up, don't look back. The dog runs with them, matching their pace, stride for stride, silent on the wet rock, vest flapping against its ribs. Behind them, nothing. No crashing footsteps through the undergrowth, no shout echoing down the drainage. Just the creek and their own breathing, and the sound of their boots on granite. Silence, which is somehow the worst possible thing, because silence means he is either not coming, or he already knows exactly where they will end up. 14 minutes. That's how long before Daniel lets himself stop. A section of marked, blazed, maintained Ethan Pond trail. White paint on the trees. a signpost with actual mileage numbers and an arrow pointing north toward Gorham. He stands there with his hands on his knees and drags air into his lungs and waits for his vision to stop tunneling. The dog sits down at his feet, tail moving in small, calm arcs, the quiet satisfaction of an animal that has finished something it set out to do. Daniel looks at it, really looks at it for the first time since the clearing. The man said, "You're not going to take my dog." Present tense, possessive, which means the dog wasn't separated from him by accident. The dog wasn't lost. The dog didn't wander. The dog left. It chose to leave. It navigated 2.4 miles of unmarked backcountry drainage on its own, found two strangers on a diverted trail, and led them back to that clearing. It was sent. And if the dog was sent, if Maddie Smith's trained service animal made a deliberate decision to find help and bring it back, then somewhere in 23,700 acres of roadless White Mountain wilderness, there is a reason it needed to. Daniel's palm is bleeding onto the granite. He doesn't notice for another 3 minutes. Daniel's phone finds signal at 7:31 p.m. in the Crawford Notch Trailhead parking lot. He doesn't text. He calls 911, and he does not stop talking for 11 minutes. He gives the coordinates off his GPS watch, the exact numbers read twice. He describes the clearing, the creek drainage, the direction and distance from the Ethan Pond junction. He describes the tent, the fire, the combination lock on the zipper, the fixed blade knife on the right hip. He describes the questions about cell service and other hikers and the campsite at the shelter. He describes a man who called himself Casey Johnson, both names, unprompted, when Casey Johnson is a name Daniel invented on the spot and has never existed anywhere outside his own head. He describes the dog. The dispatcher tells him to stay at the trailhead. He sits on the tailgate of his truck in the dark with Margaret beside him and the white poodle between them and the parking lot lights buzzing overhead, and he does not sleep. Carroll County Sheriff's Department and New Hampshire Fish and Game Search and Rescue launched a ground response the following morning at first light. The dog, logged into evidence as one white standard poodle, female, approximately 18 months, wearing a red service vest, was transported to a veterinarian in Gorham for assessment. Good health, no injuries, no signs of trauma. The vet noted she was well trained, well socialized, and responded to the name Biscuit. Biscuit. Daniel didn't know her name until the vet said it in a phone call 3 days later. He had been calling her nothing at all, which felt about right. The search team located the campsite exactly where Daniel described it. The creek bend in the drainage below Zeeland Notch, 2.4 miles from the nearest marked trail. It had been cleared. The tent was gone. The fire ring had been drowned in creek water with a thoroughness that made it look like a fire ring that hadn't been used in days. The ash beaten down to gray paste, cold and rained into silt. The soft ground near the water, which should have held boot prints in the mud, had been brushed, not raked. Brushed carefully, the way someone does it when they know what investigators look for, and they have done this before. No tent stakes, no ash in the grate, no footprints, no trace of the man who called himself Casey Johnson, because Casey Johnson does not exist and never did. A detective from the Carroll County Sheriff's Department interviewed Daniel and Margaret separately, 2 hours each. The detective had a small notebook with a green cover, and he wrote things down in it without saying much in return. He did not tell Daniel what he thought had happened. He did not confirm or deny anything Daniel already knew. He just wrote it down and thanked him for his time and walked back to his car. Daniel sat in that beige room in Gorham and stared at the table and understood for the first time that knowing something and being able to prove it are two entirely different things. You cannot charge a name that doesn't exist. You cannot enter a tent into evidence when the tent is gone. The combination lock, the wrong questions, the brushed ground, the fire built for visibility in every direction. None of it was enough. Not without more. Not without something the wilderness had already swallowed whole. Here is who Maddie Smith was. 34 years old, Littleton, New Hampshire, reported missing by her younger sister 8 days before Daniel and Margaret set foot on that trail. 8 days after she failed to return from a solo hike in Franconia Notch State Park, the southern end of the same AT corridor Daniel and Margaret had been hiking from the north. Her car was found in the trailhead parking lot, locked, keys sitting on the passenger seat. She was known to hike solo. She had a seizure disorder, well managed, and a trained service dog, a white standard poodle, 18 months old, named Biscuit, certified for seizure alert. She had been hiking this corridor for 6 years. She knew every drainage, every notch, every place the mud got bad in October. She knew it better than almost anyone. And she was gone. As of this telling, 5 months later, Maddie Smith has not been found. The investigation is open. The man in the clearing has not been identified. No charges have been filed. The White Mountain National Forest is 23,700 acres of roadless terrain, and the mountains do not explain themselves, and they do not return what they take. The detective with the green notebook has not called back. Daniel checks his AMC checklist most mornings. 11 peaks circled. 37 not. He hasn't been back to the Whites since October. He tells himself he will go back in the spring, when the weather is better, when the trails are dry. He hasn't booked anything yet. He has told this story exactly twice since it happened. Once to the detective with the green notebook in the beige room in Gorham, New Hampshire. Once to his mother, who started crying before he got to the second scene. He hasn't told it since. Not because he doesn't think about it. He thinks about it every day. He used to say the story doesn't have an ending yet. Someone would ask him how it ends, and he would say, it doesn't. Not yet. Like the yet was doing something, like it was holding a door open. He doesn't say that anymore. He says, the dog got home. That's how it ends. Everything else is still out there.